So tell me, have you ever heard the phrase "be gay, do crime"?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. So
I've always encouraged you to be gay and do crime.
Oh, yeah. No, it's been like a solid foundation of my upbringing. But the slogan first hit the internet in 2016, as far as I can tell, from a photograph of some graffiti in Marseille. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's Marseille. And it literally just says, "Be gay, period, do crime, period." It got shared all over the internet when eventually people started to incorporate it into the pride and kind of queer cultures, to where somebody on Twitter posts, "Just saw two teenage girls hop the BART turnstile and run up the stairs and start making out, and I couldn't resist the urge to shout, 'Be gay, do crime,' and they raised their fists and shouted back, 'Stonewall was a riot.' So I am informing you that the kids are, in fact, all right."
They're all right. Oh, that's magical.
Which Emmy and I have to go out and fucking commit crimes and start making out afterward.
Just the little ones, though,
Yeah,
jumping the turnstile,
yeah.
replacing the sticker that says poison and putting it onto some beef, just little things.
Just little things. I think that what everybody knows who has seen the online memes of Be Gay, Do Crime is the communist skeleton who is holding the torch and a scroll, and on the scroll it says, "Be gay, do crime." He has a torch that's saying anarchy. He's got a whole bunch of cool stuff. He's got a sword on him. It is a super classic queer meme, and it is something that I personally like. That image is just me. It is an image of me in the future when I am a skeleton walking around.
What is the origin of this photo? I'm looking at it right now. I have seen it before, but I haven't really spent any time looking at it. It looks like, okay, hold on. It looks like everything except for the words "be gay, do crime" were part of the original image, and then that was added. But I want to read what it says at the bottom. "Many blame queers for the decline of the society. We take pride in this. Some believe that we intend to shred to bits this civilization and its moral fabric. They couldn't be more accurate. We're often described as depraved, decadent, and revolting, but they ain't seen nothing yet."
So I just want to quote here, this phrase also reminds us that being gay was, and still often is, a punishable crime. Which, if you want to be a gender outlaw or a gay outlaw or anything, check out transgenderpod.com, our merch. You can get a sticker that says gender outlaw. But there are two things that I wanted to mention just really quick before we wrap up here. The respectable gay and the exceptional queer, which are two terms that ourbackpockets.com, the website that I am looking at currently, has on this page. And it is the respectable gay. The idea behind this camp is that the best way to deal with stigma is to let everyone know how we're just like you. We want to get married, have families, basically have, quote, normal lives, but with someone of the same gender. Raising awareness and showing people that we're all basically the same and not at all scary is the best way to change minds. Now, the exceptional queer, which is just an amazing name for anything.
It
is this group thinks that there's something about being queer, whether it's innate or as a result of living with stigma and creating a subculture, that's not like being straight. This camp celebrates, camp. We aren't just like you. Even within the queer community, we're all different, and that's fucking great, even necessary. I don't know what else to say. I am definitely an exceptional queer, and the skeleton from this image, I highly recommend you look it up. It is the political cartoon altered by Eo Askarim, but was originally designed by Thomas Nast. It is a skeleton. It's me all the way. You can look at this image and just picture Anna, and that's, I mean, like that. When you're listening to my voice on this podcast, picture that skeleton.
picture a skeleton. An exceptional queer and an exceptionally queer person.
I'm Anna, a transgender person.
And I'm Cam, your dads.
And this is The Transgender, a podcast chronicling my transition.
And a cisgender man learning how to support it. So this week we are so excited to bring on AfroGeode, musician.
Hello.
Wonderful human being. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate the invitation. I was very excited to receive the invite. So thanks for spending time with me today.
Of course.
So we always ask our guests the same question. So we'll ask you this. Tell us about yourself.
And, it's a very small question, very compact.
Just a tiny question.
Yeah.
Give us your whole life story.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess, first of all, I am a Black, queer, gender nonconforming individual. I was raised in the cities and by my adoptive family, went off to college and thought I was going to do psychology stuff, but ended up kind of switching gears and getting more into social work. But then also was like, wait, I like the part about working with people and especially working on public health issues and, working with folks who have experienced things similar to me. Why don't I do the therapy thing? So I went and for my master's and got that in clinical social work, and then kind of found myself in Duluth back in, oh my goodness, that was 2012.
Holy cow.
Been 10 years almost.
The time goes fast, doesn't
it?
And
so, so that's what I've been here. My professional role is a mental health professional and intercultural specialist. And then I also work in private practice. And then the other part of my, professional identity is being an artist. I am the lead singer of AfroGeode and the Gemstones, and my artist name is AfroGeode. Yeah, that's about me, quote unquote. But yeah, I'm kind of, known for being, I like to call myself a queerdo. I'm, into just a lot of...
I love that term.
Yeah, I'm just into a lot of different things. Cancerian type, real nerdy, love the water and mermaids and unicorns and the like. That's pretty much a lot of what you probably need to know. I also identify as polyamorous, so I'm in a long-term polyamorous partnership. And yeah, I will be having a life partnership commitment ceremony in a couple months here. So that's
congratulations.
Congrats.
Yeah, and so that's pretty much me. Yeah.
Looking for positivity within our community? Then listen to Queer We Are, the podcast where you hear some of the most interesting and successful LGBTQ+ people share uplifting stories, including their definition of success, how they achieved it, and what they learned along the way. Guests include celebrities, activists, politicians, athletes, and many more. Click the link in the show notes and check us out, or go to queerweare.com. If you've been looking for both fun and inspiration, now you know where to find us. Queer We Are.
You hit on everything that our podcast talks about. We talk about polyamory because I'm polyamorous. You talked about kind of being queer in general, and that is definitely right up our alley. The gender nonconforming stuff. The one thing that we don't really talk about much because we are two white people is sort of the racial aspect. And I'm just curious to hear sort of how has your experience in the queer community influenced your racial identity and vice versa?
The Duluth queer community?
In
that
general,
would be a particular
yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting here in Duluth.
Yes, mostly white, I would say.
Yeah, it's very white. I actually don't know any other Black folks in this community who identify as polyamorous. I know a few who identify as queer, but It's more discussions and more community needs to be had.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I felt pretty isolated. I think initially, right, as like a Black queer person in this community, and I think that it was just also like being in a fat body and like navigating like blatant kind of like cis het politics combined with like fat phobia and racism. It's been really interesting. And I mean, I've like found my people, and of course, like, have had joy in like polyamorous relationships, but it's been specifically, I think, challenging to like keep community. Many folks, like, I think kind of many BIPOC LGBTQS 2S plus folks like end up finding themselves maybe not really quite wanting to stay long term in community. And so it's been a mix. I think when I stepped more into music is when I think I saw, and when I stepped into like my intersecting cultural identities as well as my music, as well as like, yeah, just, I mean, my queerness in general, is when I've kind of seen a lot of like positive reaction, from community. But I think, and also I think headlining Pride last year helped. But yeah, so visibility is definitely like helpful. Yeah, I think that it has been an interesting journey.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Definitely sounds like it.
But it's where to, I mean, when we approached you, we were thinking a lot about intersectionality, and it's something that we're, again, finding really important, because I think the place that we have found some comfort is, we talk a lot about neurodivergency, intersectionality in queer communities, and that's been a big point of conversation. But we know that there's a lot of intersection and a lot of ways that we define ourselves that we want to be sure that we're talking about, and the importance there. So I'd love, just through your work and your experience, I mean, how can you speak to that a little bit, or what's your framework on the world look like when you're thinking about intersections?
Yeah, I think, always from an intersectional feminist like perspective, right? Intersectionality being like a term that was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, but definitely and obviously critical race theory. So, I believe that any and all oppressive circumstances in the world that we live in has been created by white supremacy and its, cousins, right? So like capitalism, homophobia, transphobia, all the phobias. And I believe that it's our collective duty, but particularly it's the duty and responsibility of white folks to dismantle the systems that have been built in their favor. And mental health is, of course, my profession, and I specifically work in trauma-informed care, and specifically much of my training is in trauma-informed practices and evidence-based practices. And so, yeah, there's a lot of intersection between my identities and what I do, and the like spaces that I try to set, when I'm meeting with folks in healing space, always and consistently trying to decolonize my space and my practice, and always trying to prioritize the like radical joy and healing of, the folks that I work with. And I predominantly have both BIPOC and LGBTQIS2, plus a queer and trans caseload. So I'm always like, letters. And then I'm like, queer and trans. Okay. So, so I mean, those are the like things that I guess, I'm like really passionate about, and also identify as neurodivergent myself. So, my own like healing and my ongoing journey towards liberation is important to me. And I know that I can't show up for anyone when I'm not showing up for patient zero, which is myself. I think that's kind of like what I have to say about that.
Yeah, and it's definitely taking care of yourself. That is the main priority, because you can't take care of anybody else if you yourself aren't ready to be, aren't taken care of.
Yeah.
I'm just so curious about sort of how has becoming a public figure, your music through AfroGeode and everything, how has that changed your outlook on your private practice and everything?
Yeah, still figuring that out, right? It's like, I definitely, I think, have shifted in terms of like my private practice, working outside of my community is just like too much conflict of interest to be like showing up in space and then like, like also like sort of being expected to work in the spaces like with the people who occupy the spaces that I perform in. And I'm sure that'll be interesting as I start to, branch out and work, sort of do music more in other cities and things like that. Predominantly my client base for private practice is in the cities. And then, I work with students and, most of them I don't think know anything about what I've got going on. So, but it is always interesting. And I do believe in duality. And I think duality is really important, which is the both and, right? Like I absolutely can be a therapist and I can be an intercultural specialist and I can sit on committees and make important decisions and be in the position that I'm in. And I can also be a, sexually and relationship and racially and whatever liberated individual who does my thing. And I have the right to autonomy and I have the right to take up space in all of the like roles that I occupy. And anybody who is like not in agreement with that can get to step in. I don't want you on my caseload if you can't hold space.
We do swear on this podcast, so if you've got harsher words, you're welcome to.
That's really the vibe. It's like I don't really have space for people who want to like assign their expectations and their like fallacies, and all of that is like tied into whiteness and like white supremacist ideology. So like I don't subscribe to like, oh, you need to be this in this space and then that over here in that space. Fractioning and hyper like separation is what's gotten us to where we are today. People need to be I completely really collecting the pieces of themselves that they're spreading all over the place and figuring it the fuck out.
They do. They need to figure it the fuck out. But we have talked about on this podcast, and I think it's relevant here, there's a lot of privilege involved in when I need to sort my identities out compared to when other people who are not cis white men in a position of power have to sort those things out. And so I hear that loud and clear. I just am really, I love hearing it from you because it's so powerful and it's so much like we do need to be our authentic people in all aspects of our life. And that means taking all those pieces and putting them together. But I want to acknowledge that, boy, is there's a different roads that can be longer when society and white supremacy are causing it to be harder.
I also just wanted to point out that with all of your identities, I'm really happy to hear that you're able to push forward, be yourself in all aspects, and also be able to sit yourself onto these positions and be able to say like, no, I have a right to be here and I'm going to be here.
Not going anywhere.
I love to hear that. Exactly.
Yeah, no. And I mean, trust me, like people have really tried it, right? And like, whether it's like microaggressively bringing it up in a staff meeting or like, right, like in past positions or, oh, I read about you in the paper. Oh, that outfit you were wearing on stage. Tell me about that. It's like, the outfit is giving, you're welcome, like, and if you have any questions, send them to my management. I got come to a show, like, thank you.
Yes. Well, speaking of your stage performance, I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
hear the queerdo a lot, as you said, in your songs. Both, I know that you are writing more now, but also in the covers that you've chosen. How is your music an expression of your identities?
How is it not?
Yeah. Very valid.
Okay,
I thought I'd throw you a
right,
softball
like
on that one.
my EP is just literally gay. Like it's giving very much queer. It's giving very much like lesbian breakup. It's giving
I think that is just the pinnacle of any queer person's biography is gay, other things gay. It's just all of it.
Just perhaps and maybe 80% of the songs are about my former relationships with women and blah blah blah, but also of course my blackness, in terms of the first song that I wrote for my EP, Unprotected Woman, which is my first single, Unprotected Woman, also the name of the EP, has to do with being in a black and fat gender ambiguous body where I am in this relationship with someone who's at the top of the pyramid of privilege, and just feeling really disrespected in our relationship dynamic. And I think too, polyamory, everybody, I think I don't want to say everybody, excuse me, I try really hard not to use absolutes, but there's a lot of misconception about because you're poly, this slides and that slides, and you get to do whatever you want, and it's no, actually there's expectations and just really what it's like to feel betrayed in a dynamic that feels really intentional and feels really important to have a lot of communication around. And also just there's parts in there about just being kind of the first to be relied on for emotional support. There's commentary about the white supremacist nanny mammy sort of role that's placed on black women, particularly black women in larger bodies, and taking care of everyone except yourself, and prioritizing everybody's emotional needs over your own. And I say in the song, runs the race, fast pace, but never does she place. And I was really feeling that at that point in time in my life, just really feeling just disrespected in so many just different areas of my life, and disregarded, and quite frankly invisible. So it has so much to do with my intersecting identities. And then Good Morning Black Women, there's just not a whole lot of intentional meditation pieces that are specifically geared towards black women. And so I wanted to gift that to my listeners and give them an opportunity to sort of ground themselves in the morning. And of course it's for everyone if they want to, but I specifically titled it Good Morning Black Women. And so so it was such a profound and impactful experience recording that EP. And of course you put everything into it, and then you're oh, hopefully 15 people listen. But
as a creator, that is entirely the feeling. Is you put your heart and soul into what you're working on, and you hope that people listen.
Somebody likes it. That all sounds really cathartic, though. I mean, it sounds like you're doing a lot of processing through your music.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that as the listener, because I hear things in your music. You and I are very different people, that I hear so much that moves me in your music that I can hear that catharsis happening.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you. Yeah. And so, and it's so strange because literally as soon as I wrapped it all up, I was like, okay, next. No, I didn't just spend thousands of dollars and just crawling in and out of the studio after all these hours of sessions and writing and putting my whole everything onto paper. And then I'm just okay, I think I'm ready to move on to the next thing. So which is also my neurodivergence, which is fine. It's a gift, but also it's ridiculous at the same time. I can never sit still.
So, we talked a little bit about your music. We've talked about your private practice. What about sort of your personal life? You kind of dove into that a little bit, but how do you decompress at the end of the day?
So it's basically, just ongoing search for my keys and my wallet and my life. What's going on for dinner? Did I forget something? Check my calendar. Oh, yeah, I've got that thing going on today. It's just a running to-do list, really. And, partner such and such gets this much time. Google calendars are great, and just thank you, Google, for that calendar action, spreadsheets, Another song.
You guys heard it
Practice.
Here first. The way that AfroGeode goes home and relaxes is by looking for their keys and wallet. I think something that we can all relate to.
That's right. You gotta. It's goals. You have to
lay clothes
set yourself
out.
up and get to those checkpoints and
lay things out for morning time. Breathe. Take medicine.
One step at a time, you gotta just keep moving.
Yeah. No, in all seriousness, okay, how I relax is I am not that cool. I really like to just watch Stranger Things on repeat, and I was also really into Sex Life of College Girls. I was into Grownish. All those are my favorites. I just love Netflix and Hulu. But I also really like to just kind of go for long hikes. My live-in partner and I really enjoy going for hikes together. He is also a forager, so also is neurodivergent. So the things we forage sometimes don't always did we remember to cut that up or freeze that? So it's a lot of just intentional time spent with my partner and with other loved ones, my chosen family. I am a huge fan of hosting people for dinner, which is an entire process, right? As a neurodivergent individual who really likes hosting, this can lead to a lot of chaos and conflict in my life. And also, it's so rewarding when everyone's sitting down and eating, and then my cancer heart is just I've fed everyone, and then, things like that. So I really just enjoy cooking and baking and watching the shows and squeezing some reading in and scrolling way too much on my phone. Writing music, thinking about the next move for the band, all that sort of stuff.
I have to say, I revoke your previous statement about you being uncool, because everything that you've talked about on this podcast makes you actually sound like the coolest person. So
very cool.
I don't think you get to say that about yourself. You're too cool to be able to not have that label.
I appreciate that.
I've seen you perform. You are a rock star for sure. So your coolness factor is definitely you get that time to go home and cook and watch Netflix.
Right, but after those performances, I'm then oh my gosh, did they like it? And then I go home exhausted because I put it all into the performance, and but and also maybe I forgot to eat or something, so I go home and do that. And it's rarely come to this after party. It's the after party is on my couch with pizza.
On my couch, get some cuddles. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Oh.
Anyway. Cool.
Yeah. Can you tell everybody sort of where we can find you? What we can just tell us about what your music is, where it is, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my I mean, I can be found on pretty much all major streaming platforms. AfroGeode, AfroGeode, like Afro plus Geode. So you can find me literally on all major streaming platforms. You can find me on Instagram, on Facebook under AfroGeode. I don't accept friend requests on my personal profile from people that I am not acquainted with or don't know. So don't try it. I'm just warning you. But yeah, AfroGeode. And that's across all platforms. I'm also Dance and Creative, so you can find me on their website. And if you're interested in booking a show, you can go to danceandcreatives.org. And yeah, I think that's where to find me.
Listeners, as we are recording this, it is the first day of Pride Month, and so let me just say a very, very happy Pride Month to you.
Happy Pride, everyone!
So happy to have had you on our podcast.
What an honor! I didn't even think about what an honor it is to be on the oh my gosh, first day of Pride. This is wild. Yes. And I just want to say thank you so much. This is so exciting.
If you have questions about transitioning or supporting someone who is transitioning and you'd like us to talk about it on the show, please shoot an email to questions@transgendapod.com, click the chat with us button on our website, or DM us on social media. Slide right in there.
Be sure to check out... What the fuck? Be sure to slide into our episode description for resources on today's topics, including AfroGeode's music, where to find her touring, and just more about her because she's an amazing human.
Thanks for listening. I've been Cam.
I've been Anna.
And this has been The Transgenda.
Love you all, except the bigots.
Would you like to support our podcast? Well, you're in luck. We have a Patreon now. Just visit patreon.com/transgendapod, and for as little as $3 a month, you can support the content that we're creating. And for $20 a month, you can join our Sticker Club, which provides you with a monthly live stream, a shout out on the podcast, and a sticker every month from ourselves and creators that we adore. Again, just visit patreon.com/transgendapod, and thank you for all your support.